PolipedeWorks here. If you think Avala Pizarro's island fruit is simply a carbon copy of Pika's stone fruit, then you are gravely mistaken. Let's get into it.
The corrupt king, Avala Pizarro!
Now I'm back. Now you die.
I want to talk about island encompassing abilities real quick. The first time that we see anything like this in the franchise's history is One Piece Movie 6, Baron Omatsuri and the Secret Island. In that movie, the good Baron has a pet flower named Lily. Said flower, whom I mentioned before, has the ability to replicate all of the Baron's deceased crewmates in the form of these weird plant projections, these flora personas. And when the flower is defeated, all these projections simply turn back into sprouts. This is fascinating to me because unlike how these sort of entities work in the canon of One Piece, they did not know that they were fake. Every other entity that we see knows that they're altered or that they're fake, but these guys didn't, and I just find that very fascinating. Now, on to other island encompassing things. The first time that we see anything like this in canon is when we get to Thriller Bark. The funny thing about Thriller Bark is the amount of real people on Thriller Bark is very, very small. And I find that fascinating because really Moria, using his shadow fruit, commands the bulk of the island's population, which are zombies. Zombies aren't real, but they know that they're zombies, which I find that just a weird part about how his power works. They know they're not real. So we have that, and we all know that all zombies fold to Moria because he is the master of shadows, no matter whom the shadow originally belonged to. So that's the first time that this occurs. Chronologically, the next time this occurs is with Sugar's hobby fruit, which is a very interesting thing about Sugar because technically she isn't the master of the island. Doflamingo is. He is the king of Dressrosa. So it's fascinating too that this is the first time in which the master of the island isn't the master of the island. She has a boss. With the toys, right, created by the hobby fruit, it only affects living beings, people or animals, doesn't matter. And as soon as they are touched by the user of the hobby fruit, Sugar, the world forgets about them and they become toys. However, they know the situation that they're in. They know themselves. They don't forget themselves. They know that they're them. They know that they're trapped as toys. But the fact that they know that they're toys is interesting. Also, Sugar has the option of binding them further with a contract upon turning them into a toy. So she can say, for example, don't tell anybody that I turned you into a toy. And that's a very just really oddly powerful ability that just kind of gets swept under the rug, but still it's very interesting. Then the most prominent one that has carried us through into the current arcs, Wano and Egghead, is the powers of the Soul fruit, in which we have homies. Homies are the most complex of the fruits that create automatons or like separate beings, because here homies are actually individuals. When a soul is implanted into a object or an animal and they gain this weird human sentience, right, they are real. They're actually real. They know that they're homies and they know what they are. Like Zeus knows he's a cloud, which is all the more creepy when you consider the food homies, that they're living beings independent of Big Mom and enjoy the thought of being eaten, or sometimes are terrified by the thought of being eaten. So that is both interesting and terrifying. It's also very interesting in that this is the first time, I think, in which a fruit can kind of cross play with another fruit, because it's shown that Big Mom has made Crackers, Biscuit Soldiers into homies before, and she's also affected, I think, multiple constructs made by Perospero. Amongst all the types of abilities that we have like this, Big Mom's is the most complex because none of the beings created by Big Mom have been shown to actually be beholden to her will. They can actually betray her and defect from her ranks and be their own individuals, which is just fascinating to me. And they can make their own choices. They have complete autonomy. That's insane when you really start to break it down and think about it. Okay, so we have all of those who have metaphorically controlled an island before, right? With their abilities, in which their abilities take up or have affected the vast population of an island. Here we have Pizarro. Okay, Avalo Pizarro is the island, and I don't think people quite understand what that might mean in the future. This means he is a man that can be anywhere on Full of Lead Island. He can be anywhere at all, and he can feel where you are on the island. Pika didn't have that. Pika didn't have any sensory abilities. He just moved through the stone and wore it as armor. There was no sophistication to the stone fruit other than running away and making yourself big. I mean, it's quite simple. It's nothing that complex. However, with Avalo Pizarro, we've only touched the surface, and the surface is quite deep and quite vast because he can be anywhere and he can project out of anything. As we see in chapter 1080, he projects out of the wooden floor. He projects out of the stone face of Full of Lead Island. He can talk using the structure, the entire structure of Full of Lead Island, replicating the whole talking skull effect. That in itself is insane. And then he can project his voice out of the structure as if it's him himself talking, because it is. It's actually him. I mean, we have never had a fruit in which a person can become an area. Like I said before, metaphorically, yes, in a way, people have controlled islands, but not in the way in which you can be anywhere. You exist everywhere, yet nowhere, because no one can actually find where you are. With Pika, it was quite obvious in the Zoro fight, because all you had to do was slice apart the stone until you popped out, right? But here, you would have to destroy the island, and even then, who's to say that he can't just fuse the island back together? You kind of understand what I'm saying here. It's all encompassing danger, no matter where you go. Like, you literally can't really invade this island without Avalo Pizarro knowing about it. Pizarro knows everything that goes on. There can be no deceit. There can be no deception. He hears everything. If he can talk out of anything and put his eye anywhere, he can put his ear anywhere. You can have no private conversations. There can be no deceit against Teach on this island. Think about that. He can't be deceived. He can't be undermined because he has this Titanic captain who will tell him anything he needs to know, which puts Kuzan in a very compromising position, I must say. So I don't know. And then too, we don't know if he can possess the flora on the island, the fauna on the island. Maybe he can. We don't know how far this possession goes or how far these projections go. Can he be a worm in the dirt? You know, can he be a bird that's perched on a roof? I'm going to say that he can only possess the structures in the landscape. I think that's the most sensible prediction of where the scope of his abilities lie. But at the same time, I just don't know. You know, it's quite fascinating from just the little bit that we've seen, because the scale too can just shift, because he can be flush with the floor, and then he can also project out of the floor. Pika could do these things, but again, he was only drawn to stone. Stone was his only method of possession. Here, Pizarro can go anywhere. So I just find that a fascinating concept, and one that we haven't really seen in the story to this degree at this point. But now that we have, it's mind-boggling. Now, in terms of hierarchy, I would think he beats both Pika and Capone Beige, because I would think Capone Beige would be kind of in the running with him, even though Capone's a little weird because he's got the weird shrink, grow force field around him. But even still, Capone is a structure. The fruit is called the castle fruit. In this series, a castle would usually be found on an island. So he's kind of in the mix here. So I would still say Capone and Pika are under Avala Pizarro in terms of Delphi hierarchy. And to make the comparison more sound, if you look at Baby 5 and Mr. 1, Baby 5 has a plethora of abilities, including like this weird regeneration she can do if she turns into something that's explosive, like a torpedo. She turns into like this black goop and comes back together. So she too has like extra abilities, much like Beige himself. I don't think the comparison is unfounded to say that Avala Pizarro with his island fruit would be superior to both Pika and Capone game Beige, because an island would supersede a castle or stone itself. What's interesting is that I wonder what would happen if, say, a Logia attacked or fought on an island for an extended period of time. Would Avala Pizarro be affected by the climate of the island? So Full of Lead Island is more like a tropical island. It's more like a spring island or a summer island. So if it were to change weather drastically or to change climate permanently because of Kuzan fighting there for an extended period of time, would he himself be affected by the climate changing, or would he be okay? Second of all, I'm wondering, is he on Robin rules? What do I mean by that? Meaning, like, you know how Robin projects her body parts, and if you hurt the projection, you hurt Robin? So with Garb doing his big galaxy fist and causing a giant explosion in the middle of the island, presumably, would that affect Pizarro? Does he feel the impact of the punch because he is the island? In terms of which Straw Hat would best be fit to fight Pizarro in the future, I just named that candidate. I say Nico Robin would be the perfect person to fight Pizarro, because like Pizarro, she too can be in multiple places at once. And seeing as how we saw the devastation of what she could do during the Black Maria fight, it is no question that she could do some damage to Pizarro in the future if these abilities of hers keep developing. So with that being said, anywhere he can be, she can also be. On top of that, she has been harnessing the power to fly, so I don't know when the time comes in which the Straw Hats fight the Blackbeard Pirates, I don't know whether that power would be perfected or not, but it's very possible that she can actually gain some altitude on Pizarro and be out of his reach, and therefore have an advantage to actually clutch him wherever he may be. And given how large her constructs have become, she can make perhaps multiple large bodies at that point in time that are able to stranglehold Pizarro, clutch him, find where else he's hiding, clutch him there, find his next location, clutch him there, and just keep doing that onward and onward and onward until one of them prevails. So yeah, I think Robin would be the perfect candidate because she can actually fight Pizarro without getting tired, because her main power, her main ability is duplication. It is growing and spreading her limbs or her full body or a larger projection of her full body in multiple locations. And if the Black Maria fight is any indication, larger constructs are now going to be the name of the game for her in more serious fights. And she has fought larger opponents before, using Black Maria as an example. So yes, I do think Robin will scale up to the point where she can actually break the back of an entire island. But give me your thoughts. If you like stuff like this, please feel free to check out my YouTube channel, PolipedeWorks. And if you like what you see, I would appreciate your subscription. Thank you so much. See you next time.